Okay, so we have some gorgeous people here who have not been paid to come on a Sunday evening. James, isn't that right? James is saying, no, I definitely have not been paid. I might have been here earlier if I hadn't been paid. So we have some gorgeous people who both have had a personal experience with anxiety and healing anxiety, and who have done some of the training. So the training, the APP, what we call the APP training program. And so obviously what I wanted to do was I wanted to gather people who have dual experience, both of anxiety and of the training, together and have an open and honest conversation about the program and about what it's like to live with anxiety and how, in fact, the program has helped. And I wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth, because it's very easy for somebody who runs the program, who's passionate about the program, who wants to get as many boots in the ground. And I really do mean that, as many boots on the ground as I can possibly get over the next few years to give you the sales spiel. So what I wanted was an open and honest conversation. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and ask some questions, and our beautiful panel are going to talk about the answers to the questions in whatever capacity they feel that they want to answer the questions. And so you can answer it professionally, and you can answer it personally, or you can answer the both. Or I'm not going to do the whole I'm not going to get everybody to introduce themselves. We're just going to go straight into a lovely, warm-hearted, open conversation that's in service of all of us and all of you. So I think what we'll do is we'll start by asking, so we all have our own personal story with anxiety. I think you don't come into this work unless you have a personal story of in some form or fashion of pain or hurt. I think that's what all attracts us all to this kind of work. So we've all, in our own ways, our own personal story with anxiety, and we help people with anxiety. So for all of these, I wanted to kind of know, what was the worst part for you? What was the worst part of the anxiety journey? And what was the piece of it that you thought, in the whole journey that was really, really, really difficult? Anybody want to start?
I think I could start.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Cool. For me, it would be a very particular moment where I thought to myself, my body's falling apart and I don't know why. What is this disease I've got? What is this physical disease? So,
and that was the moment for you?
Yeah. I'd say that's really stuck with me. Yeah.
Isn't that incredible? And what is this physical disease? Because it has to be a disease. And believing it was a disease.
Yeah, believing it was a disease and having, back then, no sense it was even anxiety. It was just a physical disease I had. And that no one could diagnose, by the way.
Oh, nobody could die. Okay, so you're on your own with a disease that you were going to have for the rest of your days.
That's right, yeah. And it was getting worse and I didn't know why, and I didn't know how to stop that. Yeah.
Wow. That's really sore, but isn't it? It's really sore. This is a disease. I have it. It's something I'm going to have to live with. It's something I'm going to have to hold for the rest of my days. The pain of that and the human condition is really difficult. And then the question becomes, is your story similar? Because I can certainly relate to that. I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life, I thought. What about the rest of you? Thank you, Jim. Yeah, Billy, go sure.
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the same thing. Just like, I nearly just thought, like, this is going to randomly show up. I have no control where it shows up. And this is always going to sabotage what I want to do with my life. Like, even working with people or working in mental health or domestic violence, it would just show up at random times, until I really understood it. So I just felt I have to live with this forever, and it's always going to impede my progress professionally, personally. And then I think just the generic therapies out there perpetuate that, because it's just constant oh, your mother makes you anxious. How can we remove her from your life? Oh, the neighbor's a psycho. How can we avoid the neighbor? So we just kind of avoid lots and lots and lots of things and triggers and people and places. And then you end up still really anxious and you're like, what is this? No awareness, so.
And what is this in me? Because it comes back to you, doesn't it? That's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah, like I believed I was mentally ill.
Yeah. Wow.
Like mentally ill, but hiding it really well from the world.
Like really managing it.
Yeah, like people would say to me, "You're so calm. Your voice is so calm," and I just laugh inside and go,
If you only knew.
indeed.
So for you, but that's the worst part of it. The worst part of it is feeling that this is going to follow you around forever. You were never going to get out of it. And you just were having to remove or manage the things that was causing it.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's whack-a-mole.
yeah, and it's whack-a-mole that 25 new moles show up on the daily, and there's no. It's just
And the
not.
whack-a-mole show up, Billy, whenever you're to give a presentation or whenever you have a big moment or in those
Yeah,
times.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was the worst part for you.
Definitely. And I find it ironic because for me, the anxiety is gone, but moments like this do make me feel anxious, like speaking to strangers. But you did say to me, oh, it'll never be gone. Like you'll never not have a human anxious response to on the spot. But like years ago, I couldn't have even maybe chatted this way because it had just been an absolute panic attack mess,
Yeah. I think that's a really important point, and I'm keen to get the other two girls. But I think that's an important point. We remove root cause that keeps flaring itself up, but there's no full frontal lobotomy here. We're not taking away the body's response to threat, thanks be to God, nor would we want to, because that's the stuff that keeps you free and sane and safe. So yeah, I mean, moments like this that you're going to get anxious, but you're not anxious about the thing that you started with. You're not anxious about the thing that caused full panic or full amygdala hijack. That stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, what about the rest of you, scared? What about you, two scared?
For me, Shauna, just the debilitation of it, I think that was the greatest pain for me. Just to be removed from the joy of life. That was so sore. Just not for me, but witnessing those around me, watching that as well, and feeling that I was also taken away from their joy. I think that was one of the greatest pains that I carried through all of it, and probably why I'm just loving life so much now again. I need to bring it back down again.
You need to bring yourself back to the level everybody else is at, please, Miss. Yeah,
it's do you feel that joy again? God, it's just so incredible, because the weight of the pain of that is, and for anybody experiencing anxiety, God, it's horrendous.
And when you talk about the experience, you're talking about the physical experience.
Physical experience of not able to function. God, I was actually even trying to think about anxiety before I came on. I was going, how am I even trying to think about what anxiety, how it affected me? I suppose that just exemplifies, the model that you operate, Shauna. But it's a non-describable process. And the living anxiety is just, you're not even living.
No.
You're just surviving, and that's why people deserve to be able to facilitate in this model. They have the freedom.
The freedom that you're experiencing now. But just to go back to the question, because we'll come to the freedom in a minute. The original question is being robbed of joy,
being robbed of joy. And the weight and the shame. There's huge shame attached to it, because I was convinced, and then you're labelled as well. I was convinced this is a mental illness. Going to have to live with it forever. Never going to be well. I mean, I just live with this mantra. I'm never going to be well. Never going to be well again. The weight of all that, and then the shame around it as well, is just absolutely excruciating.
Well said.
It's a sore, as you all know that have experienced such a sore journey.
Yeah, well said. That's absolutely. And again, same sort of story from everybody saying the same sort of thing here. It was the
Yeah.
feeling that it was something you couldn't get rid of. It was the feeling that it was something you're
Yeah.
going to have to live the rest of your days.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
the weight of that's massive. That robs you of joy for sure. What about you, Tammy?
Yeah.
Emma?
For me, when I first started having anxiety, I was about 17, so it's very much the physical side of things. I had social phobia and quite often felt like I was going to pass out when I was outside of the house.
Yeah.
Absolutely couldn't look anyone in the eye, couldn't eat in front of anyone. So, you know, made life really difficult. But so I got help then, but management, all the management styles, and that's what I was told at the time. You're just going to have to manage this. So I did, and then recently got the help from yourself, because it was not as much the physical side of things, it was the emotional, and I was just exhausted, just absolutely exhausted from managing. And I thought, do I actually want to live this life of managing every freaking day? I've got to manage. And I was tired. I was just tired of managing. So it's the freedom that comes with it. I mean, I did experience freedom from managing at certain points, but the freedom from not having to manage, the freedom of being able to just live like normal people. I felt like I was going crazy this second time around. Just felt like I was just mad.
It's an incredible freedom. I think when you know the pain, you know the freedom. And I think that's what you're saying. You're saying that you two very clear, distinct lines in the sand. Having it, learning you have it, learning to manage it, and then not learning to manage it. And that's when this APP work come in for you, both professionally and personally then, really.
Yeah, because it was flaring up again for certain things that were happening in my life. It was flaring up again and making me think like, oh, I thought I dealt with this, you know? And it just highlighted the fact that I hadn't dealt with it. And it was just managing. And when you said, you know, you could get to the bottom of it and you could actually get rid of it, like the main problem, I was like, oh, I need to get me some of that. I was like, obviously it'd be good for my clients, but I need that.
Yeah, but how important that was for you. But your flare timed with your training, which I don't think was a coincidence. I think we aggravated a wee bit in that training.
Oh, thanks.
Experientially, which if anybody's ever done any of my courses, they know you're going on for the experience, like you're going on for the, and so what you learn from it's incredible. So I think that's those two go hand in hand, Tammy. But again, the experience, the having to manage it, the feeling that you have to live with it, the feeling that you have to be free from it is incredible. It was interesting for me. It was the physical experience. I'm a wild feeler, so I feel very intensely. I don't feel on the mild side. So I feel everything, like I feel like double power feelings. So the experience of it was the physical experience in the body for me was the worst part of it. It's that terrified me the most. It was the body and feeling like I had no control, no agency, no sovereignty over my own body. For me, that's what was terrifying. And then learning to gain, you know, we're talking about root cause, like you're talking about root cause, Tammy, but learning for me to manage the body firstly, because I didn't have any other program prior to this. So I didn't learn to manage it. I just went for the jugular. So I didn't have the experience that you guys might have had. And I know, Fidelma, you didn't either, because you came straight to me. So you didn't have the experience of managing, where the rest of the guys had the experience of managing, where me and you just went for the jugular. And we went right, and so for me, learning to calm the body was one of the, I felt like it was over then. I felt like I had arrived at the top of the mountain once the body was calm. How did you feel, Billy, about that?
Yeah, like it's weird, right? Because you know the way people say it's hard to remember a headache. Like it's
Yes.
my anxiety was so life crippling internally, but it's nearly hard to remember it because it was so far away from clearing it. Does that make sense? But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a real body sensation for me. Like I used to feel very dissociated at the end of my anxiety, where I nearly couldn't feel myself. Like often like I was spiked with something, you know, that kind of crazy feeling. And that for me was the scariest part. Do you know? Just that sort of sensation of it. What was your direct question? Sorry, Shauna.
Just in relation to once the body was calm. So we would, you and I would have worked on the particular side of the model that was maps and patterns.
Yes.
James, me and you never worked in maps and patterns, but you were taught maps and patterns. So I'd like to hear what difference it makes for your clients when you work in maps and patterns when we come around to you. But your experience of both working in maps and patterns for yourself, Billy, what was that like? When
Yeah, sorry. Now I must apologize. I have a teething baby that has me up half the night at the minute, and I feel a little bit as sharp as a marble, as they
You're all
say.
right. A little techie as sharp as a marble, Billy. It's all right.
Sorry. So yeah, like well, I think it was a very strange concept. Like I went to you as a therapist who had anxiety, but you know, not to give too much away, but when you helped me to understand the pattern, the map, the relationship I had with the anxiety, that was very foreign to me. To be able to sort of get inside it, become more aware, break down a pattern. So to understand that it was very fear-based for me as well around physical health. And I used to think Diet Coke triggered it and all these mad things. So to be able to break it down inside the body and stop it from escalating, like it was really weird. Like that idea we laugh about, like looking behind the couch, like where's my anxiety gone? Because to understand how your relationship with it is what makes it snowball and get really out of control. And obviously there's a delicate way of delivering that to clients, because I got defensive about that. It was a bit like, I'm not making my own anxiety worse, lady. Are you trying to help me? But actually we are, but we don't know it. But it's the pattern and it's so specific. That's the other key piece. You know, we're always thinking anxiety is just anxiety. You just have to live with it. It feels shit. Everyone gets it. But actually it's so specific to each client. It's never the same pattern. There's never the same sensations in the same order. Do you get me?
Yeah, like that's your clinical experience of it now. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, and everyone you come in contact with, like they're never the same reasons. That's why this is so important, because root cause eliminates. And the problem in the mental health system now is just treating the blanket anxiety, which is just sort of hit and miss for most people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Yeah, it absolutely does. And for the rest of, so Fidelma, your experience of working with maps and patterns personally, not professionally, personally, what was that like for you?
Well, prior to coming to you, Shauna, I had been to 2 therapists. And I mean, you talk about the hope and despair cycle. At that stage, I was in despair because I had this mental illness, incurable. I wasn't able to do the letdown, all this. I had now been to 2 therapists. So I was past the point of rescue.
Right.
Because my anxiety, as you know, Shauna, was at such a heightened level. I was in complete and utter crisis by the time I came to you, with absolutely no self-awareness. So truthfully, their models of practice were never going to work for me. Looking back, because when I came to you, it was a group session that you'd run at that time, if you remember, and you were doing mapping. And that was the first moment that I realized that I'm going to be okay. And I'll never forget walking out of your office. I had told my husband to collect me, because they had actually gone to the park while I was on with Hughbrook Park. And I had told my husband to collect me, and I actually walked out of your office to Brook Park
yourself.
myself, and I felt freedom that day.
And that's just from the pattern, the maps.
And that was the map and the pattern. That was the very first time I met you. But that was the day that I realized, here, this is okay.
You can,
You know,
it's something you can get in control of. It's something that's
Yeah.
yours. It's something that you are in relationship with, and it's something that you can get into the detail of and switch this off. Even just knowing it.
even just knowing that, that's what I'm telling you. It was like, it was enough to even just change where I was, because at that stage I completely believed that there was no getting well.
And so to be presented with the maps and patterns, and they know is it's the moment that you think,
Yes.
it's the moment hope comes back. It's the moment
Oh,
when hope comes back.
oh,
There's a sense of control, and you can start to work on it and undo it, and then we can start
Oh,
to get it
give me goosebumps even thinking about it.
back. Good. I'm glad I'm giving you goosebumps and
Gorgeous.
not anxiety talking about it. That's good. That's good. For you, Tammy, I've
Yeah.
heard you describe doing the assessment with clients, and then
Mhm.
say it was life changing, even just the assessment part of it.
Yeah, so not even getting into maps and patterns, not getting into any of the work that actually is going to cure them, for want of a better word. But yeah, just doing the assessment, and that was a big piece of my puzzle that was missing before I met you. A massive piece. Looking back at it now, I'm like, how did I run a business without it? You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got more booked in soon, and I've done some. And they've literally walked away and just been like, I feel so understood. And I think that's vital when you're going through something and you feel crazy and you feel like you're the only one with this problem. For somebody to turn around and say that they feel more understood than they've ever felt, like even from partners, you know, to be fully heard, fully understood. And then, like Fidelma said, to have that hope. Hope is just, it's priceless, isn't it? It's absolutely priceless. So yeah, I'm loving doing them.
So I see, because every time she does it, she posts in the group that she's just done one, and then everybody's floating on behind her, congratulating her, because the client's in a really good place. So that's really lovely.
And even the lady
James,
can I just say, even
Yeah,
the lady
please.
who was going to have the NHS, the talk therapy, she came and had an assessment, even though I knew I wasn't going to be working with her. And I said, but I really think if you have this assessment done, it gives you a plan to take to that person and run through it. And she was like, okay, yeah, sounds good. And she was blown away at how helpful just the assessment was. And then she's booked in to do the maps and patterns with me. And we're not going to do the rest of it because she's doing that with her, you know, talk therapist person. But she's not going to do maps and patterns because that's, you know, it's individual to you and your program, isn't it? So it's just going to help so many people in so many different ways.
Yeah, but that's incredible, to be heard, to be seen, just an assessment, which is what we teach in assessment. So just to be heard and seen, just alone, and then for the book and to do maps and patterns, and then to do your therapeutic work elsewhere is perfect. We don't have to all do, we don't have to be doing the whole thing. And no, we do, I do, we take everybody through the journey, but imagine a client gets to pick and choose. The freedom of that, the choice of that's beautiful. Brilliant, thank you, Tammy. Your experience, James, of maps and patterns.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
so as you mentioned, Shauna, this is clinically, and you know, what Fidelma was saying just now is the first thing I really want to talk about. It's the act of even mapping and patterning can have a massive effect already. I mean, Fidelma put that into words better than I ever could, actually, from an experiential basis, but that's what I see a lot. I see the mapping and patterning already causing shifts. I see what Billy was talking about as well. And I've, you know, experienced that myself to a degree. This kind of a, excuse me, very different relationship that we discover with this anxiety. We get this whole new perspective, this whole like game-changing shift in that perspective. Then when we get into that kind of break point, and I don't know how much detail we're going into here, but basically when we move further in and there's a break point, again, you can have some really quite dramatic improvement. But you know, so for me, all of that is big positive, like major improvements in the anxiety itself, but then what you've got is the pivot. And for me, that is kind of more, I was going to say more important. I mean, it's as important, let's say, because that's when we're starting to turn in and look at root cause. And for me, that is enormous. You know, that's massive, massive.
And what you're talking about, what James is talking about, is the clinical language that we use for whenever a client gets to a point where they understand their maps and patterns and they've switched. The break point is where they've switched off the rise in symptoms. And once that's done, and that's what he's talking about, the break point, once that's done and there's sovereignty in the body, then the client's not afraid of where their symptoms are going. The client's not afraid of where they're going to go. And then they turn on, James's turn of phrase there was, and they turn on the root cause. It's like that, isn't it, James?
Yeah.
You literally turn on.
Yeah. And that right there is a potentially kind of like life-changing positive journey right there inwards to root cause that is just missing in so much therapy that's out there. So yeah.
So, and it's a beautiful moment to have with the client. Them's the moment you leave session and go, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is why I'm here. They're the moments where you lie down in bed at night and think, oh yeah. The journey to there can be hairy, but they're the moments that make it worthwhile, for sure. The therapist, for sure. And I know we're talking about this professionally and personally. Okay, so we talked about root cause. One thing that I did want to ask you is, what's your both either professional or personal experience of getting caught in the triggers, getting caught in the what ifs, the don't do's? Does anybody remember the experience of that? What like to get trapped in that place that keeps firing out all the things? Tammy, tell me.
I mean, be here all day if we talked about for me, but for a client, I've been working with a lady for about a year, doing all the roundabout stuff, you know. And yeah, it's helped. Every session has helped, and she's gone away. She felt more confident, more, you know, driven, and you know. And then since doing the anxiety maps patterns, we've got to root cause, and we've hit the spot so specifically. It has literally been life-changing for her, and we've been dancing around this freaking spot for so long now, but we never would have got it if we hadn't have done your system, because we would have constantly been working in the triggers and the what ifs, and so it's just been, it is lovely to watch. It's just incredible. It really is.
Yeah, it's incredible to see the client come down to that place, isn't it? After dancing for so long. And I know, James, you have a lot of thought on that. It's your thing, isn't it? Your thing is the mind's functions and being able to cut through those mind's functions.
Yeah, absolutely, Shauna. I mean, so in brief, when we talk about the what ifs and the don't do's and so on, I mean, for me, I'm really, really interested in highly driven people, perfectionists and stuff like that. And that's quite a nuanced, complex set of kind of what ifs and don't do's, driven by kind of like achievement and stuff to keep out of certain things. That's my own personal background. And let's just say that, like, I haven't come across anything else as a therapist that kind of can really help on that level. And experientially, that's been life-changing for me, and it continues to be, and that's my ongoing journey. So yeah, it's
to not getting caught in that place, which we teach. Don't get caught in the what ifs. Don't get caught in the, and if you remember the 3 days, it was the first thing that I taught you. I talked about the red herrings. I talked about the what ifs. I talked about the don't do's, and I talked about the how difficult anxiety is if we treat it at that level. And so when you stop treating it at that level, and you're shaking your head, Fidelma, and you treat it at root cause, the difference of treating it at that level, how many what ifs and don't do's, and this is the problem and that's the problem that you have for me. You're muted, Fidelma.
Muted, sorry, I'm muted here. An exhausting process, Shauna. An absolutely exhausting process, that, you know, how much the mind works to keep protecting you. And the minute that you can come down out of that under the body is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And then when it actually clears, and it's like you're going, where is it?
That's what Polly says. You're looking behind the sofa to see where it went to, because you can't
It's
quite
so
believe
true,
it's
Polly.
gone. I love that turn of phrase. Polly says that to me one day and I nearly fell off the floor laughing. Look, you're looking behind the sofa to see where your best friend has been. You've had it for so long.
It's so
Yeah,
true.
So
Brilliant.
true. What was your experience of all that what ifs? Yeah, Billy, go ahead.
Just laughing at the triggers. I read something the other night, it just really made me laugh. It said, like, if you want to know how enlightened you are, go and spend a week with your family. It just makes me laugh because, you know, we work on ourselves. I don't know if everyone else would agree, but the family of origin, it's just trigger happy. Ping, 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 whether it's mother, crazy sister, you know, there's nothing going to trigger you more, I think, you know. So for me, the family was most certainly the most kind of intense bodily responses to anxiety and trauma. And so it was just great to be able to sort of spend time with family and be able to sort of see the madness like it's a movie and be okay, you know, and not be triggered every 2 seconds. Do that kind of way. So yeah.
Yeah. Not being
Yeah,
your
and
body, be free from it. Yeah. And not be constantly in the thoughts of it that says, don't do, what if, that keep the triggers alive.
Yeah, and stay away from that and don't talk about that and all that, because they're just constant triggers. But I mean, it is important to note, like, once you calm the body, you know, root cause isn't easy either. Do you know, like, and that's difficult for clients, do you know?
Yeah.
And like,
difficult.
Sometimes I might have said to you, oh, I'll take the anxiety back, please, rather than look at that. But you don't really do that because anxiety is so crippling. But I just mean the root cause is hard going as well, do you know? But just to be able to settle all of those debilitating symptoms. I think, like you talked about, James, the perfectionism and all that, like, I could really identify with that, but that's all to keep away from root cause. But no therapist ever helps you with that. The idea is just, you have anxiety, this is how you live with it, avoid the triggers, you know. It's just never enough. So this method is, I feel real confident now as a therapist because of the method, to be able to help someone instead of going round the houses for 10 years with no resolve. Do you know?
And is that the biggest thing for you, Billy, confidence that you have for it?
Oh, definitely. And like, don't get me wrong, like, I'm thinking of one client I'm working with, sometimes root cause is so crazy painful. And the anxiety can be really heightened when you're working in it. And we call it poking the bear.
Yeah.
And it can get very, very intense. And you can have your client coming back saying, I felt way worse, you know, in the early week.
Yes.
And that's hard. But there's always a confidence there that we can break this. We can see where this is consistently showing up. We understand what's going on here. This isn't some elusive.
Yeah, it's like when Billy and I had therapy years and years ago. Billy came to me years ago and then has trained in all the programs since. But it was like when you came to me at the beginning and you would have said, I've had a really bad week, and I would have said, fabulous.
Yeah. Stop. Yeah. And it's really, and you kind of think, bitch, if I'm allowed to say that.
You're allowed to say it.
For real. But like, you're, you know, and you're starting to feel now, you know, and I'm seeing that with clients. It's the panic is under control, but the rawness.
The rawness of the felt, of the root cause, of the felt sense.
Oh, and Pandora's box is opened and it's like, shit, can't get away from this.
But they're still laughing at you call me a bitch, by the way. Just, you remember, you were invited to a conversation that said keeping it real. I mean, if we're keeping it real, we really are keeping it real. No, you're all right, Billy. You're more than welcome. But it's true. You know, you're bringing people to the core of their pain. They're not going down there saying, aren't you just the wonderfulest therapist that I've ever met in the whole entire life? They're saying, screw you and bringing me here or opening this because it's sore and it's difficult. But once we work in that, and I suppose if Fidel, give you, what's it like to heal that root cause?
It's just, it's life changing at an unbelievable level. As I say, the abundance and the joy, and I mean, jeepers, it's not all rosy rosy every day, but the freedom from the pain,
Yeah.
and
Beautiful.
being able to address pain at a different level. It's just phenomenal.
How do you think the
But
program has set you up for life and or living rather than life? How do you think it has set you up for? Because you said something there now I think is important. Being able to work with pain at a different level after the program.
yeah, well, you know, we're not looking for pain free, because pain free is not there.
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. Being able to manage your own pain, the power in that, it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal to go from a place of being completely overpowered by pain, no comprehension of it, not understanding it. So it's as I say, the most empowering place to be able to love from.
And from a therapeutic point of view, like Fidelma hasn't done the APP program yet. She will in her own time. She's retraining at the minute to be a therapist. So she's doing the kind of 4-year degree, and then she's going to come and join us. But I'm not really new to this one, by the way, Fidelma. You're more than welcome to join us. I would take you in a heartbeat, by the way. You're not, it's not a no for you, sorry, right? I'd squeeze you into an extra place if it needs.
Thanks, Shauna.
But you're talking about this experientially, you're not talking about this professionally, you're talking about this from an experience point of view primarily here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I've said that to you before. I don't know if I hadn't have come to your door in Clarendon Street, I don't know where I would be living now.
Yeah.
Probably very heavily medicated, still in a very difficult place.
I think you would have found a way.
Well, I would have found a way, but not this way. And to me,
I mean,
this is the only way. It really is, without a doubt.
Thank you. And she has not been paid. There's no brown envelope, I promise you. There's no payment.
You know, I like French martinis, Shauna.
I promise you, there's been no French martinis handed out there. So I think that's important for the rest of you guys. What would you say what would you say is the most important part of the program for you guys? James, where do you wrap it up? What has been the biggest use for you clinically in learning APP?
Well, yeah. I mean, to wrap it up, I would say that the biggest thing has been, this is the path of like full, deep, complete kind of healing, as opposed to anything less, you know. I mean, my previous experiences, my previous stuff that I had experience of just did not go that deep. And that indeed was why I was still experiencing, you know, difficulties until I met you, Shauna, and experienced that myself. So yeah, it's about actually going all the way down into root cause and actually healing that.
And that for you has been the biggest turnaround, is it?
Yeah. Because just to say, that is not only healing, that is one and the same as discovering your true self and actually unwrapping who you really are, getting in touch with your true essence and being able to authentically express that in life, you know. So that's massive.
So James is talking about what Fidelma has hinted at. James is talking about when she talks about joy and abundance, and like, you know, everyone here has their own story and their own journey, but your story, Fidelma, is that she's starting a social enterprise with for autistic children and their parents. James, you have gone on to identify your ideal client, what you want to do in the world, you know, who you want to serve, what you want to do. The other two girls is exactly the same. They've gone on from these anxiety places to find, as you say, James, beautifully, this authentic self that unravels at the end of it. So you're not just pain free, but you're closer to who you really are, which is you know, spiritual in nature, and but there's a whole other element after it, isn't there?
Yeah.
And has that been what has been most profound for you?
Yeah, and I mean, that's, to be clear, that is an ongoing process, of course. Like, it's not like, you know, arrived and done, as you know. So
You've arrived in the enlightened world. And we're all
So
screwed if we think that. Yeah,
right,
that
exactly.
disclaimer: enlightenment is not a byproduct of this program.
Yeah, exactly.
Full
Yeah,
disclaimer. Yeah,
yeah, but a very real kind of there's something very real, very kind of like there is something really profound that comes out of that kind of healing, and that is what I continue to experience, continue to express, and that is an ongoing thing. So,
and that's what you want to help your clients with.
Exactly.
Brilliant. What about the last two gears there? What would you say is the most profound piece of the puzzle here? Or
for me as a therapist, the thing that I found most valuable as a therapist is having the structure. Because before I was dancing around in all different areas, and now, I mean, I've got literally having it in front of me when I'm working with somebody, boom, 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 and it keeps me on track, because it is hard as a therapist to not be sucked into someone's stories, especially if you know that person quite well. So I find that so invaluable, because it just keeps you on track and you can get what you need out of it, rather than going off.
But
yeah,
Tammy,
I love the structure.
I love that about you, Tammy, as the kind of analytical structure type. So while we're all off in airy fairyland talking about finding your real self and wonderful things, for those that are structured and that do like, you know, June and I were talking earlier, that do like, you know, the written transcripts and like to highlight, and Donna, who's in our clearing group, loves a good transcript and a good highlighter. That's not my personality, it's not the way I am. But for you to say that was really important, because that's not my frame of reference. I wouldn't even remember to say that tonight, or to point to that. So the structure of it is very important. So thanks for bringing that.
I quite often draw on my whiteboard. I draw the diamond on the whiteboard, so my clients, if they're visual like I am, they can see it and they can see their journey of what we're going to go on. So yeah, I just love it. Obviously for myself as a client, I've had all the self-development and the woo-woo stuff. But yeah, as a therapist, the structure has been most important.
Brilliant. And I love that you brought that to bear and didn't let me go down woo-woo land too long there, Tammy. Thank you. Billy, what about you? What has been your...
Yeah, I think there's so much, like, see, because I've trained in the clearing. Like the clearing, I suppose I use that alongside the anxiety model constantly. So I think the two best things for me is nearly being able to guarantee your client, I can help you. And I don't mean that like ego, but we're not wasting our time here. But also the swiping aside of all the shite, and let's not waste the hour on the shite. Because the trigger is, and then you're getting to root. And then the relationship the client starts to have with anxiety, because I nearly presented like, I just have anxiety. I've no idea why, like nothing bad's really happened in my life. You know, it's really scary for me to even say that, because I experienced quite a lot of trauma, to be honest. But anxiety does that to people. I nearly think it takes over so much physiologically that it becomes pathologized. I have anxiety and there's no other reason. So just to be able to give a client hope that we will get underneath this, and let's not waste loads of time there, because there's something consistently happening here. Trigger. This is your relationship with anxiety, and then the wound presents itself quite quickly. And I enjoy that, because we're not going to work together for 10 years. Now, I worked with you for over 2 years personally, because of the layers of stuff under, you know, and I've been in therapy for years and trained for years.
Because you're person-centered, your basic training. Now, I don't want any notes from any person-centered therapist when I say that, because I'm person-centered trained myself. But we're talking about our fundamental training, your fundamental training. I don't mean basic, I mean fundamental training. Is person-centered. That that's your basic training, your fundamental training, and then you need
Yeah.
a clearing, or you need APP and then you need a clearing. So from a person-centered point of view, we understand the complexities of person-centered psychotherapy, which seems to be, what's the word that you use, bathing in the dirty water a wee bit.
Yeah, totally. And it's great in terms of the core conditions and Carl Rogers, and it's a beautiful method. But for me, it's, and I hate the term solution focused, but for me, there was no resolve. Like, you know, we can sit here and hope that the organic system finds its way, but we could be there 20 fucking years, excuse the French, and therapy is expensive and it's time consuming. So for me, this was like, I suppose it's important to say this to everybody as well. Like, I used to try to study what Shauna did with me when I was in session with her, because I was a therapist. So I was like, what did she just do there? Why do I feel so much better? Why
James is laughing because James has been told off on many occasions.
And I'd say, what did you do there? And Shauna would be like, okay, so then keep working.
Okay, so let's go back to you. Never mind your own business. So let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I'm not even like, I don't want to say I'm not spiritual. I'm not religious, but I had prayed to find somebody to help me. Like, just before I found you, I had paid a hypnotherapist. Now, James, I know do you do some hypnotherapy work? I don't know much about it, but it wouldn't be something that's on my radar. And I was like, I'm so desperate. I paid this guy like 300 quid. And he was like, you don't feel anxious anymore. Click, 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 his fingers. And I just came away going, oh my God, I was so desperate. And I prayed to my father who had just passed, please help me. This anxiety is ruining my life. And bam, Shauna came along. And then because it was working so quickly, I just felt, because I'd pulled away from private counselling really with no confidence and anxiety, I was like, what does she do? I need to know what she's doing because I feel better and I want to be a therapist, but I don't want to be one till I feel confident in what I'm doing. So I think it's confidence. It's quick. It's not the quick fix when there's a lot of trauma underneath, but it is a bit of a quick fix to anxiety. Truthfully, it is a quick fix to get anxiety.
Body settled.
Yeah. Totally.
But I love the reality of that. It's a quick fix if we want to settle the body, and it depending on the amount of root cause or trauma, that's going to be a lot more work.
Totally.
But isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Because and whatever, when we clear the rubbish or the pain or the difficulty and root cause, then there's this part of ourselves that emerges, but not before the pain is, enlightenment. And enlightenment is not what we're talking about. We're talking about getting closer to your real self. We're not talking about where pain doesn't exist or anxiety doesn't exist. But the reason that you're showing up and this anxiety showing up in your body gets removed. But we're not saying that you'll walk across the road and a bus will come and you'll not feel fear. That's not what we're talking about. And the length of time depends on the length of stuff that you're carrying.
Yeah.
And the length of weeks that you're going to be in session with somebody depends on the length of time, the stuff that you're carrying. That's the reality of this, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I have a lot of therapist friends that still believe they're going to meditate their way out of their own anxiety. And I'm just like, Jesus, and you nearly feel smug, like, I don't want to say smug, but I can see it even in you, Fidelma, like there's a joy about you and an energy, and James, what you're saying, and Tammy, you nearly kind of go, Jesus, I'm free from this. Like, you want it for everyone, but when people are trapped up in it, they don't want to hear that either, unless they're
I think there's a wee bit of work around that as well, actually, as you say, I nearly start to feel a bit guilty over my recovery because I realize the pain of what people's living in. So I hear you on that, Billy, as well.
But if we're looking at what we're doing, right, what we're collectively doing, what you've done yourself, what you'll eventually do with everybody else here, and I think we've 50 therapists trained now at this stage. There's only 50 people doing this work in the world, only. That's not enough. It's not enough to make real difference, which is why we're all here, which is why you have given up your time on a Sunday evening to explain the method, which is why you've come to talk to people who are watching this who might be interested in joining the APP program, you know, that might be willing to come and train, because I don't know for yous, but you know, the passion that I have for it, but I know yous have the passion as well for it, or else you wouldn't be here on it. Whether professionally or personally, you wouldn't be here on a Sunday night giving up your time, which is now 8:10, and I've taken far too much of everybody's time and let everybody go.
Not at
So
all.
thank you guys for being wonderful ambassadors for the
Thank you,
model and
Shauna.
continue to do great work. Thank you, Fidelma. Thanks for your honesty about your own journey, because it takes bravery.
Thank you, Shauna.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the program. For you guys, thanks for doing great work. Thank you for doing great work. Anybody that's watching this who needs an anxiety therapist, they're sitting in front of you, and they are trained and they're ready to go. I don't take private clients any longer, and so these guys are operating, and you'll see them on my website. These guys are operating as anxiety specialists in their own right, and they're all have their own therapeutic qualifications, that foundational basic qualifications that support that. So if anybody is struggling, if we have triggered anything for anybody, if anybody is in any way or shape or form struggling with it and needs some support with it, what's more important than me selling an AP program to you guys is that you know that it helps there. So what I'll do underneath this is that I'll put the links to our website where their numbers are, so if anybody needs help, because I understand that this can be triggering. That wasn't my original intention, but it's just actually come into my mind. You know, talking about anxiety can create anxiety, and so if anybody needs any support or help that is watching this, because we have a group watching this of over 3,000 people as well, then I would suggest that you give these guys, I'll put the link in and you can go straight to the website. You can give these guys a shout. Thank you to our speakers, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, and thanks, David.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Shauna.
Thanks, Adoranki. Yeah, yeah, I got it right. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you all soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. 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 Guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.